Good morning. Happy Monday, June 27th. The month is virtually over. Wow. So what's going on? Well, last week's video was actually pre-recorded because Monday was June Tween Day, a national holiday. And as I understand, it's a holiday celebrating the freedom of slavery 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln. So we're a little bit behind on that in all. We suffered a very hot week last week. But for me, when I walk out of the office, which is nicely air-conditioned here, I just stand there in the sunlight and I go, oh, thank you, Lord, because I just love the heat. For those parents and all who want their kids to go to the public pools, I know you're having a hard time because there's just no workers to work these places. And then we're seeing reports that a lot of the airlines are also having trouble because they don't have pilots and other workers. So a lot of these flights are canceled, and I think they were saying that already over the Father's Day weekend there were maybe like 5,000 flights that were canceled, so that's a huge problem there. And last week Tuesday we celebrated summer solstice. That's the longest day of the year. Now, what's going on at the MLD Agency? Here at the MLD Agency, we sell insurance, and insurance is an intangible. An intangible means it's something you can't touch or feel. A lot of times, policies now are just being emailed to people, and they're stuck on their cell phones or their tablets or their computers, and they don't really open them up and read them anymore. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's an intangible. If you want a surefire way to use your insurance, here's an example of how you can guarantee to use your insurance. So last week, my wife and I went to see our daughter who lives out of town. And we were on 8094 eastbound coming up to 65. And I was looking in my rearview mirror and I saw this Hummer whizzing in and out of traffic. And as it came up on my right-hand side, we're now entering a construction zone. And this Hummer cut across, and it hit a car, which hit another car, and there was like a big explosion of car parts. And they were at that point just a little bit ahead of us, but the car parts exploded in the air, and my car went underneath flying car parts. Thank God we were not injured at all. However, two innocent vehicles had their car smashed, and you could see them exploding up. The Hummer, the right front corner of the Hummer, exploded up. That was all caused by the Hummer driver. I don't know if it was a male or female, don't really care. It was a Hummer driver. It wasn't the Hummer. I like how they always say, a Hummer ran through, like an SUV. An SUV, it's the driver. Ruined that day, probably for himself, because we could see his car was disabled, and for at least two other cars and their occupants. So here's the thing. If you want a surefire way to see that your intangible health insurance policy that you've purchased from me or other agents like me or directly from insurance company is actually something that will work, I guarantee you, go out there and behave like that Hummer driver. And you know what? I do pray that three vehicles and their occupants do not have to test out the quality of their health insurance because they were injured and there was not enough coverage on their automobile policy to cover their medical expenses. And when we were coming home, we came home at night and we were driving 294 on our way home, and we got buzzed by a couple of cars, and we were on 294 in the 10:30 to 11:30 range. There were a couple times that we saw sitting on the side the highway patrol, and one patrol car was driving along and got buzzed. No reaction that I could tell. So you know what? If there's no consequences, why don't we all just go out and buy the hottest sports car we can find and drive as recklessly as we can, because there's absolutely no consequences. You post a law that says it's 55 miles an hour or 60 or 65. Who cares? Okay, Mark, so now you're ranting. I guess maybe I am ranting. But you know what? When people are doing that, they're violating laws, they're endangering other people, and they're doing it partially, I believe, because they don't believe that there are consequences to their actions. So politicians actually do a job. Why don't you pass a law that you're going to enforce? Very easy to enforce. People get caught doing that. You immediately take away the car that they're driving. Heaven forbid if it's somebody else's car. Maybe that person will be a little bit more responsible to make sure that the driver of that vehicle is behaving accordingly. But confiscate the car, period. Done deal. Gone forever. Then give them a fine of maybe, $50,000, $100,000. Garnish their paycheck until that's paid back. Whoa! And how about this? Take away their license forever. Because you know what? When they hit and damage somebody who's innocent, when they hit and kill somebody, that's permanent to that victim. Okay, so that's my rant for the day. So what's going on at the MLD agency? Well, last week we were working with 2 groups for their medical insurance. And we helped the person transition from the under 65 health insurance to the Medicare supplement marketplace. And we paid out one finder's fee. So thank you very much for that and all. Until next week, remember, if you're driving on the highway, please drive responsibly. Turn off your cell phones. Pay attention to your driving. Pay attention to the speed limits. And remember, you're not the only person on the road. Take care.